National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, presents a Bravo video event, the Business Insurance Zone, dedicated to financial professionals who use insurance in their practice.
On today's show, Charitable Giving 2011 with CPA Ken Davis.
And now the host of the Business Insurance Zone, the whiz of the biz, insurance columnist Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. We're broadcasting live to a nationwide audience of financial professionals right here in Fountain Hills, Arizona, home of America's largest fountain. And all this week, we've had our special guest on. Oh my gosh, think about it. CFP, CLU, CHFC, and CPA Ken Davis. Ken, welcome to the show. Ken, every time I told you last week when we were talking about end of the year planning, I actually went to the store this weekend. Think about this, and looked for the alphabet cereal. So I could do the CLU, CHFC, right? It was great. Man, that stuff's got so much sugar in it. No wonder I was hyper when I was younger. Well, we're today.
Well, you still are, Steve. So what's your excuse now, dude?
I don't know. I'm not drinking caffeine. What can I say? But we're really up on the things of finance because we want our clients to be, we're excited, we're enthusiastic about it, and we're all this week we've been talking about charitable giving, perfect for the season, right? We're in our holiday mode, as you can see at Brokers Alliance, and we're on our last day. If you missed anything that we've been talking about, you're missing a lot, and I want you to go out to this site so that you can not only catch it all, but we have so many giveaways on this show for this particular thing that we're talking about, charitable giving. You can go out to www.brokersalliance.com/charitable giving. We're going to be giving away the 2010 study. Where do you have that someplace on your
I do.
List there?
Yeah.
That's our 2010 study on high net worth philanthropy. 75 pages. It is excellent statistics. It really gives you an insight of what's going on. We're giving that away. We're also going to be giving away, one of our carriers has done a beautiful 1040 overlay. It's excellent. Honestly, you're going to free up money just on a few tax items that you never thought possible, and it'll actually give the client more net spendable. I mean, I love that. All 5 of the videos of this show, and we also have our own brief that we put together at Brokers Alliance on charitable giving. We're arming you with everything we can think of because, and even though this is end of the year and charitable giving is part of the end of the year planning, the kind of charitable ideas that we have are really not quarantined to the month of December.
Right.
I mean, these can be done all year long, and there's some really cool tactical things that Ken talked about. If you missed yesterday's show, for sure, pick it up, and don't forget to watch it. Well, Ken, today we're talking about, on our last day in on this, we got a list here. I don't know how far we'll get into it. We'll try our best. Resources for planning, for planning and giving. What are the resources? There are a wealth of info out there. I mean, I cannot believe a menu, a plethora of all kinds of things that are out there, not only on the web, but some of the resources that you specifically as an advisor, things that we have here at Brokers Alliance. Talk a little bit about some of the things that we need to know. And by the way, I always think of charity, and then I hear you keep intertwining this word foundation.
Yeah.
I think of a charity, IRS approved, right? Charity, nonprofit organization. Right. Then you say, foundation.
Right.
Is there a real difference here?
Well, yeah, the foundation is set up in the name of the charity, and we're talking mostly about endowments, where somebody's giving a lump sum of money and they want somebody to continue to make payments on an ongoing basis. Well, the foundation for the charity becomes the recipient of those endowment gifts. They have money managers and advisors and legal people and everything else, and they take care of those assets and make sure that they're growing so that they can continue to make gifts on an ongoing basis. And typically, foundations will pay out 4 or 5% of whatever's in the accounts. What's interesting in terms of resources, which is the topic for today, is we're going to be talking about community foundations here in a second, but also you mentioned the web, and it got me to thinking. Some of the major charities, Red Cross, maybe your church headquarters for the states or something like that, they all have websites, and you can get on. There's all kinds of information about planned giving, charitable gift annuities. And in fact, one of them I'm thinking about, the church actually has a calculator. You just put the value of the asset in, and it'll tell you and your age, and it'll tell you what a recommended distribution for the charitable gift annuity is. So there's all kinds of resources there. And then what we're primary topic today is something that a lot of people may not know about, and it's a community foundation.
Yeah, I have to say, when I looked this up, my first time, I was thinking, well, I've heard of foundations, I've heard of private foundations, but why did you, wrap it in community foundation? Talk a little bit about it.
Well, because I'm thinking about our audience. Our audience may not know much about charitable giving or planned giving, and they need resources and help, and they may be a little bit afraid to jump into these waters because they're afraid of making mistakes or not knowing what they're talking about. Community foundations are public charities, usually in individual locales. Like in Arizona, we've got them in all the small communities across the state. We have the bigger one is the Arizona Community Foundation, which is something that I spend time with. And they are public charities. Now, why that's important, as we talked in the prior segments about charitable gifts being limited to adjusted gross income. Well, if you give monies to a public charity that meet IRS qualifications, you can deduct up to 50% of your AGI. There's other charities and situations where you can only deduct up to 30% of AGI, and then sometimes as low as 20%. So that's really kind of nice. That makes a difference. So foundations, you give them money, they pay it out to the charities of choice.
Little side note here, Ken, because I know a lot of our producers sometimes, we kind of get into this generic charitable giving, and we don't think of AGI or adjusted gross income. We don't think of the charity. Maybe it isn't 50%. Maybe it's less.
That's right.
We just want to make sure that what is the organization we're giving to? Not only is it approved, but what kind of it? What's our AGI? There's things that we have to kind of know going in first. And I just want to remind us that, hey, that's an issue. And we did talk about a little bit about this a couple days
Yeah,
back.
we talked about insurable interest and then valuation for gifting purposes. And the community foundations have attorneys and accountants and various people.
And these people, we don't have to pay them, right?
Yeah, pay them a dime.
They're on their nickel.
Well, and the fact matters, they love you dearly. When you show up and you have a gift for their foundation, you become their friend, and they're excited about having a relationship. So they'll give you wonderful resources. They also give back to the professional community. They do ongoing educational forums.
Workshops and so forth.
You can volunteer to be on the board or on committees and stuff like that, which I've done. I've met some really excellent people, attorneys, accountants.
But let's go one step further than this, Ken, because this is where you get into this thing. We used to teach back in the day when you actually went through a career shop and they actually taught you how to this business.
Yeah.
They teach you how to network. This is an excellent, and I mean excellent way of networking. And here's the bigger part. Forget that. You actually have gotten business by doing this, networking with organizations, charities, and so forth. And that's, I think, the bigger issue there is this is a good thing to do. And especially, I'm interacting now with CPAs and attorneys on these boards. It's on the charity's nickel. So a lot of the things that I can bring to my client, and these are good tactics for charitable giving, I have good fiduciary backup for this.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And the thing is that we can become a resource for them. It goes both ways.
Oh, yeah.
I had a situation where, the policy that my client was gifting to the community foundation has to be approved by their attorneys for receipt. They want to make sure everything's on the up and up. What was interesting is somebody that looked at it came up with the idea they thought it was a variable life contract. And so, this is risky and you have to manage it. And I said, no. This was an indexed universal life, whole different situation. And then we talked about 10 pays versus guaranteed and how the 10 pays have substantial cash values that you can stop in the middle and you can reduce face values. And this was all news to them. They had no clue about this. They didn't have a lot of experience with insurance gifts in the past.
Yeah, my bigger question would be, how did they even come to the assumption that they didn't know the difference between a variable contract and an index contract and what they had? See, that to me is where we come in, because we can actually, exactly what you're saying, and everybody can kind of read these, and just a little heads up, we do life insurance financial evaluations. This is all we do. We have people that do this all the time, not only at Brokers Alliance, I'm sure other shops. And all we're looking at is we're telling people what it is, what's the risks, what do you have to get done, what's the policy. We do enforced ledgers. We do all the analysis. So go ahead.
Right. So, the professional support and resources go both ways. But for people who are the uninitiated who've, and let me warn again or caution again like we did in the other shows, if you're going to get into this, you really have to have a good heart. You really have to be doing this for the right reasons, because the charitable community very quickly sniffs out people that aren't sincere. And they don't like them.
Do you see a lot of that, by the way?
Oh yeah. There's people wanting to take advantage of the situation. They really don't care about anybody but themselves, and that's not how you approach charities. You have to have a passion for it, because you're going to give time. You're going to give time. You may never get paid for it. You're going to be giving your time and resources as well. And if you're lucky like me or whatever, over time as they get to know you and trust you, you may very well see some business. But boy, it's like a Kiwanis Club or Rotary. You don't go in with the idea that I'm going to make a ton of business off this and money. You go in because you want to help the community.
Although I must say that 90% of the reason why people go to these social gatherings is to network. The very thing we say we don't want to do when we get there.
Well, there is some hypocrisy there, and I have to admit it. You have to, though, understand that you have to give and you have to earn that respect.
Right, it's relational. And by the way, if you ever figured out about relational, you don't know what Facebook is like. I mean, talk about a conversion. Mr. Transaction here, I have to say, had to make a major change in my thinking to go out to Facebook and be relational, right?
That's exactly right.
I mean, and you're saying pretty much this is the same area. But I want to talk about some of these other issues too. I buy into the community foundation. They are the liaison. They can go to any foundation. They're doing all these charities all in one place. It's a nice big warehouse of information, and I love the fiduciary support. How can I make that work in my practice?
Well, that study that we're offering for free was really instructive. When I saw the numbers that 90% of planned giving is initiated by the client, not the advisor. Only 10% is the advisor asking to help the client. I'm just visualizing I'm at a party somewhere and I'm talking to somebody, and I'm not talking insurance or investments or whatever. I'm talking maybe about I'm at a charitable event. I'm talking, it's the Phoenix Botanical Gardens, right? And I'm chatting about what a great organization this is and what wonderful programs they put on, and it's so cool and all this stuff. And you get somebody who's really enthusiastic about it. He's on the board. He's a wealthy guy, and you say, gosh, you really are a wonderful supporter of this organization. What are you doing in the planned giving area? Have you found ways to get deductions, and are you working with your advisors? Just a really simple question, and it's germane to why you're there, and it doesn't sound like you're promoting yourself. And they go, well, what do you mean? What's planned giving? Or, well, no, I've been thinking about that, and my advisor, I didn't know where to turn. And then you say, gosh, I'd be delighted to have lunch with you and give you some free advice on how this works and how the tax planning works and all that stuff. And they say, well, I've got my attorney and accountant and whatever. And you say, well, yeah, but they haven't helped you. I'm not asking you to replace your advisors. I just want to play another role, be another member on your team. And I spend time working on stuff. I understand how to do it. Glad to help you out. There's your foot in the door to a high net worth client that you never would have had a chance at.
I think this is honestly kind of a new frontier for a lot of advisors. You need to look at it. Hey, it's the reason for the season now. This is perfect to kind of dip your toe into. And remember, in our show, just for a little heads up for Ken, everything we give away is free. So just wanted to make sure everybody thought we weren't charging. Hey, you got to go out to our landing page and swipe your Visa, right? But we're giving all those things away at www.brokersalliance.com. You're listening to the Business Insurance Zone, the show that focuses on insurance in your practice. You can email me at my address, thebiz@brokersalliance.com, or just call toll-free 1-800-290-7226, extension 147. Ken and I will be right back after a word from our premier sponsor of GUL and Term Insurance, Legal and General America.
Banner Life Insurance Company and its subsidiary, William Penn Life Insurance Company of New York, comprise the Legal and General America companies, part of the International Legal and General Group, one of the largest insurance companies in the world. Now, Legal and General America is one of the top-rated insurance companies in America, with one of the strongest financial balance sheet among its peers. Legal and General America is a major player in guaranteed term and guaranteed universal life, and consistently ranks among the best carriers in almost every product spreadsheet. Legal and General America's product line of guaranteed universal life endows at the maturity date, while most carriers' cash values just zero out. You know the reputation of Banner? Now know the value of LGA, Legal and General America. The power to protect, the power to preserve, the power to serve their policyholders. That's Legal and General America.
Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm Steve Savant, your host, insurance columnist, financial color commentator, and interviewer extraordinaire. I'm thinking there, I'm laughing at myself because I'm thinking about Christmas, my presents, the things that I have to get done, and
Me too, dude.
I'm thinking, man, I'm never going to get this done. Hey, remember, any of the strategy you hear on our show, please go to your CPA and your tax attorney and your broker-dealer before you go forward with anything we talk about. You can call me 1-800-290-7226 for any of your quotes or questions on life insurance, annuities, DI, LTC, or group pension plans. And one thing heads up, it's not what I know, it's who I know, and that's why I have Ken on my show all this week. You can watch our entire 5 series. Get the 1040 overlay, the 2010 study on philanthropy, our own charitable giving, and everything that we're giving away at www.brokersalliance.com/charitable giving. Now, we're up against the clock now. We're counting down. I think this whole week blows by so fast. I want to talk about this really fast, Ken, because I want to touch on, make sure we get the topics we want to talk about.
Sure.
I heard this thing. I always thought, I need a potpourri of counsel. I need a lot of people,
Sure.
right, to interact with me,
Sure.
so I get the full mantra of what I want. I want to understand it. But I notice here that one of your gripe, I don't want to say it's a gripe of yours, but it seems like you kind of go down this road. One legal department is better than numerous legal departments.
Right. And
why is that such a big deal?
Well, in my particular client case, he had 5 charities that he wanted to give money to, and he wanted to set up an endowment. So as I told you before, we went to the Arizona Community Foundation and asked them to get involved. Well, what's cool about it is they have a legal department there, and they want to help you make the gift, but they have to make sure that somebody isn't, scamming the IRS or playing games, that the policy will remain in force, that there'll be enough money to pay for it. There's some legal issues,
Sure.
insurability interests, as we talked about in the prior shows. So if you present the insurance ledger, the information, the documents through one legal department, then you only have to do one. If you have 5 separate charities you're giving to, 5 applications, 5 life insurance policies, 5 legal departments, all kinds of work on an administrative basis, it really isn't worth it. So one of the cool things about a community foundation is that they can do all of that. They'll administer the legal work, help you with the design and all that stuff. We can help them with the insurance design. And so we get it done in one place. They receive the cash gift. They make the payments on the life policy, one policy, receive the death benefits, and then distribute it out to the various charities. Now, be careful. Different foundations have different rules. Some of them say, hey, we did all this work. We want to retain the endowment, and we'll just pay out the gifts as each year. Others will say, well, gosh, if you just want to distribute all the death benefits to 5 different charities, we'll let you do that too. And that was one of the sticky things I ran into at one point with one of the charities was their policies. And sometimes they haven't seen a lot of life insurance policies. You have to kind of work with them. Make sure you iron through these issues with the legal departments up front before you get the client involved.
Well, let's move on to another subject too, because I keep thinking of, I'm charitably giving, I'm giving donations, I am using a foundation. Is it the same as a charity? I'm using this community. There's a lot of mixture of language here. When I say in grant making, am I still charitably giving? Is that grant a different thing than a donation?
Well, yeah. What's happened is that envision you give $1 million to a foundation, and they take 5% of that each year, $50,000, and that's now available, say, through the community foundation, and you've set up what they call a donor advised fund. You can't hold their feet to the fire legally. But they're always going to take the donor as the advisor and do what they want to do with the grants. In other words, each year there's money available to give to a charity. Maybe your intent was to always give it to the Cancer Foundation. And maybe 30 years from now, in Star Trek kinds of levels, we've gotten rid of cancer. So now what do they do with the money? Well, what we can do is usually a community foundation with $1 million or more will let the donors advise them on where the grants each year should go, and then the kids, when mom and dad pass away, can be set up to take over that role and make grant making, and then the grandkids and the great grandkids. This can go on for many generations, and a lot of families that have wealth really love the idea of giving back to the community. They want to teach these values to their children and grandchildren. So having this ability to be a donor advisor to help decide where the money goes on the grants each year becomes part of a family operation and something that's important to keep the family together.
Yeah, I think the phrase you're using here in one of your briefs is multi-generational involvement.
Right. Multi-generational involvement, making sure that the gift continues on this ongoing basis for many, many years. And then the other thing like a community foundation can do too is you can say, gee, I want it for cancer or medically related, and if it turns out that particular charity goes out of business because they solve the problem, then the community foundation step in and find another medical charity that can take over in the absence of the other one. And sometimes when if you set up your own private foundation that made gifts, and that goes out of business, then what do? Somebody has to go to court. And
so do you have to kind of anticipate all this, or they do that for you?
That's the beauty of a community foundation, is they do that for you.
All right, great. Ken, I love this line on this topic. I was kind of, but the last part of it caught me. It says, first of all, I love the word cachet. I just like to say it. Like I love cashews, I love to say cachet. Cachet for kids with charities vying for money. The imagery that came up when I first read this before, these kids fighting
imagine.
These kids fighting over money, right? Duking it out in a family living room, vying for money. What do you mean by cachet for kids with charities vying for money?
Well, it's interesting. A person's reputation and standing in the community frequently comes from their good works. If somebody's really involved, they're at dinners and networking events and all this stuff, and their name pops up on a bulletin or a newsletter or a program at a musical event or something like that, that's kind of an indirect way of advertising. That's Joe's a good person, look what he does for the community. And so when Joe is looking for some help or trying to do business, a lot of people are favorably inclined to work with that person. That's where the cachet comes from. There's actually a theater here, and it'll remain nameless for the show, but there's a theater that's named after a prominent attorney who had gifted the money to buy the theater. And his son's name is exactly Dad's, except for it's Junior. Now, that's what I talk about cachet, is you're walking around town with the name that's on this huge venue that everybody in the Phoenix area knows about. And what great name recognition. You want to run for office, you want to get access to a particular office or talk to somebody. It's your community involvement. So these ongoing multi-generational gifts and the grant making kind of gives you some cachet or some standing in the community. And people that do this kind of thing understand that. That's why they want their name on the buildings and stuff like that first to be remembered.
So there's a value to this.
Yeah, there's this intangible value, and people that do this kind of stuff understand that. So that's kind of a cool thing. And yes, I know we're supposed to give and all that stuff, but people are looking for, well, I'm going to give, but it'd be nice to get a little back. So
there's always angles on this.
There are always angles on it.
Talk about a little bit about donor-advised funds, because I know that could be a very controversial subject.
Well, donor advisement is just simply, we're talking about adjusted gross income limitations. Well, if you do a private foundation, the limits on AGI deductions are much lower than if you do a public charity. So what the community foundations do is set up a donor-advised fund. This is money where you put it in there, it becomes an endowment, you're going to do grant making. Legally, they can't give you the right to direct without question. But what they will do is if it's a valid charity, a legal charity, and you advise that that's where you want it to go, why wouldn't they do that? And they know that if they don't do it, they're going to stop getting people setting up donor-advised funds. So it's in their interest to cooperate with you. It's only in an egregious situation or something doesn't make sense or there's a problem that they're not going to do it. So donor-advised fund is just a way of kind of, instead of having your own attorneys, your own legal documents, your accountants, your money managers, all that stuff to do your own private foundation, and then this plethora of additional rules that restrict you because the government doesn't quite trust you to have your own private foundation, they like the idea of a public foundation with community involvement and boards of directors that are unrelated to you, and that's where the whole donor-advised fund comes in. That's what that concept's all about.
Well, when I think of all the things that we've been talking about all this week, just on charitable giving, which is, again, more universal than just doing this at the end of December, right? We're talking about all kinds of ideas. And remember, you can get this all out. We were talking about not only all the things we've been talking about, but so much more because we just don't have the time. Go out to our site, www.brokersalliance.com/charitable giving. Out there, we're going to have that 5-video series of this whole week. Our 1040 overlay by Carrie, it's excellent. Our 2010 study on high net worth philanthropy. Also, our own charitable giving thing that we put together so it can answer a lot of these questions.
Well, and the other thing I'm going to mention, and we're not really prepared to get into it because it's way too complex, but there are things like charitable remainder trust, charitable lead trusts. I know one of the major insurance carriers does some seminar work on charitable lead trusts. Because of interest rates being so low, they're very attractive right now. Certainly not something we have time to get into today or not really prepared to talk about. But the charitable gift annuities, the donor advised funds, all that stuff, really are a simplified, low-cost way to do some of these more advanced kinds of things. And with community foundations, the legal documents, the agreements, the advice, the brochures, all of it's there. It's back to that pyramid. You get your really high net worth people that can hire all these advisors, and maybe it's a large enough gift to justify that. But for the guy that just has 25 grand or 50 grand or something, having these types of charitable gift annuities or pooled income funds or donor funds are all there to make it easy for the middle class kind of person to get involved in this stuff too.
There's really so much, and one of our docs, I always, when I first came into this, we're so heavy in acronyms in our industry. We were always talking about grits and grats and gruts and oh my goodness, I mean all these different possibilities of trust work, and all that's going to be in our own brief that we're doing on charitable giving. And to me, I don't want you to go ahead and try to read this all at one time. Take your time, go through it, figure out which one will actually dovetail into your practice, and then figure out which entities you can visit to actually dip your toe into charitable giving. Well, you can watch this show and all our shows, this whole week of shows in beautiful HD 1080p on our on-demand section at Brokers Alliance, right on our homepage at www.brokersalliance.com, and of course on all our social networks on YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I'm Steve Savant. You've been listening to the Business Insurance Zone. That's the buzz on the biz for today. Get in the zone, the Business Insurance Zone.
This has been a Bravo video event of the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, one of the largest distributors of insurance products and services to a nationwide network of insurance professionals. Need insurance guidance? Call Brokers Alliance.